Good afternoon. So today we're going to be talking about legal research. We're going to hopefully be finishing our videos on this, and this one is about administrative law, international law, and foreign law. As a reminder, I just cover these things quickly. Again, you're using Andragogy to learn these. Your research exercise 3 is focused almost exclusively on these topics, so we'll be going through rather quickly. So the first thing we're going to touch on is administrative law. Remember that administrative law comes from federal agencies. It is part of the executive branch. And just to touch on quickly, just like so many other things, again, this is just to give you exposure. There is an entire class devoted to administrative law. As I started this whole research function, you learned about the 3 branches of government: the legislative branch, the judicial branch, the executive branch. And the executive branch makes its proclamations, executive orders, rules, and regulations. And it's those rules and regulations that fall under administrative law. The Administrative Procedure Act, which is done through the federal government, has a process for rulemaking. Proposed rules coming under the Administrative Procedure Act are published in what is known as the Federal Register. Here it reports all the documents from the executive branch. That would be executive orders, presidential proclamations, agency documents, everything. It is published every single day. Said that it also includes proposed rules for agency regulations. It posts a notice for opportunity and notice for comment. And then when the final rules get posted in the Code of Federal Regulations. Code of Federal Regulations is available in paper copy only. It changes every single year. You can find them at www.ecfr.gov. And the research assignment will show you how to get to the Federal Register and to the CFRs, or Code of Federal Regulations. Quickly, in Florida, there is the Florida Administrative Register. This is parallel to the Federal Register. It contains all of the rules, revisions, reports. It is updated every day. It gives all the opportunity for notice and comment on rules. And the final rules get posted in the Florida Administrative Code. Of course, you can find all of those and most of the federal documents on Westlaw and Lexis, or on a federal government or state website. And that's what I have for administrative law. We're now going to be moving to international and foreign law. There is a difference between the two. International law is the law between countries. Public international law are laws that are related to the states and interstate organizations. Private international law are laws relating to private interactions across national borders. So if a Florida corporation was exporting something to Colombia, that could be regulated by private international law. Foreign law is the law of countries other than the United States. So what is the law in Canada? That's foreign law. What is the law in the Bahamas? That's foreign law. What is the law in Ecuador? That's foreign law. You will receive exposure to both foreign law and international law in research exercise 3. It is a very large topic. It is difficult to even do an overview on this. So I'm going to focus on international, not on foreign law, because every country's law is unique. Within the context of international law, there is also a huge topic. One important thing that you need to be aware of is, just like if you're not familiar with United States law, you want to find a secondary source, you can find a secondary source in international law. There is something called the Max Planck Encyclopedia, which is a good general secondary source for international law. as far as international law topics, there are so many that it's very hard to figure out what to talk about. So I'm basically going to give you an introductory understanding to the United Nations, because the United Nations is kind of the centerpiece of international law. So the United Nations works under a governing document called the Charter of the United Nations. It was signed in 1945 after World War II. It is a treaty, but it is also the foundational document of the UN itself. Under the UN Charter, there are 6 principal parts. There is the General Assembly, which is the largest of the 6 parts. Every member state is represented there. This General Assembly functions primarily as a deliberative body. It discusses and considers and debates issues, and then generally it conducts its business by passing resolutions. There is also the Security Council. There are 15 members, 5 permanent, and 10 rotate every 2 years. The 5 permanent members of the Security Council are China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Their primary responsibility is for maintaining international peace and security. Then there is the Secretariat. This is the administrative arm of the UN. It is headed by a Secretary General, who is the Chief Administrative Officer. The Secretariat's office also has the Economic and Social Council. The Economic and Social Council has 54 members. Each is elected to a 3-year staggered term. Their function is to promote higher standards of living, full employment, and conditions of social progress and development. This council coordinates with the UN agencies like the WHO, the World Health Organization, and the World Bank to try to progress societies forward. There is also the Trustee Council. It's in parentheses because it was part of the original charter, but it hasn't really been functioning since 1994. Some countries at the time of the charter were not ready to exercise complete sovereignty. But since now all of the countries in the charter do have complete sovereignty, the Trustees Council is not functioning, but it is part of the charter. Then you have the International Court of Justice, or sometimes called the World Court. It is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. It is located in The Hague in Netherlands. It has 15 members sitting at any one time. The members act as independent jurists, meaning they don't represent their country when they are on the bench. They are independent and basically represent the International Court of Justice. They are governed by a separate treaty called the Statute of the International Court of Justice. They're a successor to a nearly identical court, which was established under the League of Nations, and that was called the Permanent Court of International Justice. The cases from the ICJ rely on cases from the Permanent Court of International Justice, or the PCIJ, just as if it was one of their own. So the International Court of Justice gets its jurisdiction from Article 36 of the International Court of Justice. This gives you jurisdiction over cases that parties refer to it, meaning a party has to go and specifically seek out the International Court of Justice. And this matters, and for other matters that are provided in the UN Charter or other treaties. The parties accept jurisdiction as to legal disputes. The disputes can be about the interpretation of a treaty, any question of international law, the existence of any fact which, if established, would constitute a breach of an international obligation, the nature or extent of the reparation to be made for the breach. There is also Article 38, which articulates 4 basic sources of international law for the purposes of analyzing an International Court of Justice case. The first would be international conventions or treaties that establish rules. The second would be international custom, and as evidence of a general practice of accepted law, meaning what is done throughout the world. Then general principles of law recognized by civilized nations. And within certain restrictions laid out in the statute, certain judicial decisions and teachings of qualified individuals in various nations. You can research all of these, all international law on your usual platforms of Westlaw, Lexis, and various sources. And that was a very quick tour. You learn much more about international law when you take national comparison. And for now, I will just say thank you very much, and I will see you next time.